CBS barely wasted any time at all before they got into the issue of abortion, or as they call it, reproductive rights, which is a euphemism for destroying life, actually. And they wanted to talk to J.D. Vance about it. They said, this is your great polling weakness, so let's see if we can hurt you. Here's how some of that went. Tim Walz last night.
Let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today.
That's Tim Walz saying that abortion laws should not be left to the voters of the United States. For more on this, I want to bring in Shawn Carney now, president and CEO of 40 Days for Life, who was watching all of it closely. Hello, Shawn. Good to have you with us.
It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
So Tim Walz invoked the name Amber Thurman last night. And as I understand it, Thurman died a couple years ago. It was 2022. She had taken an abortion pill, which led to fatal consequences for her. Isn't that right?
Yeah, she took an abortion. It's the opposite of what he said. The abortion pill killed her. And this is the problem with the deregulation of abortion pills that the left wants to do. She had a very common complication, which is the first pill, it's two pills. The first pill poisons the baby, and then the second pill induces the woman into labor, and she delivers the baby, passes the baby, usually in the toilet of her own apartment. And some of the baby was still inside of her, so she got an infection, and she waited to go to the ER, and her baby was already dead. I want to be clear on that. And when she went to the ER, she had complications, and she died. In no state is it illegal. It's absurd. Is it illegal to give care to her in that circumstance? By the way, this happens all the time. This is just that the women don't die. They usually go in sooner. And so 25% of women that take the abortion pills end up in the ER. It's one of the major problems with it. So it's very common, but they usually get in there and they can get care. And that's legal in all 50 states. This is a new fad that the Democrats are basically saying that we're making, miscarriage the same as an abortion because it's the same, procedure to remove a baby who miscarried. And so this completely took everything out of context, and access to abortion would not have saved her life. And these are people that exploit 14-year-old rape victims so they can sell abortions. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they're using poor Amber to say, if you were in Minnesota, you'd be alive today. It's complete nonsense.
Yes, and they use the exceptions to define the rule. But if you were to ask them, hey, if I were to say that abortion is perfectly fine in those limited circumstances, rape or incest, the life of the mother, would you be okay with outlawing it for convenience, like just that? Disposing of babies, would you be okay with that? They would never say yes to that. They would never agree to that because the point is the larger category. It's just a matter of convenience and optional abortions. That's what the left is defending here.
It is, and I thought Vance overall kind of botched it. I guess pun intended. A lot of his first three or four things he said were terrible on abortion, and then he hit a grand slam by finally calling Walz out for under him, Minnesota did have abortions through all 40 weeks, and there were 8 babies who survived an abortion and died. When Walz was governor, he removed the requirement to report those deaths from babies that survived an abortion. So it's not that he's for it. He doesn't even want to report it.
No.
I mean, he's a nut. And so it really, I thought Vance did a good job of calling him out on that.
I was hoping, I said earlier in the program, I was kind of hoping that he would get to that earlier in the abortion sequence because it's such an important thing for the voters to know. But J.D. Vance did, as you point out, he did get there, Shawn Carney. Here's what that sounded like as he called out Tim Walz.
You're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their health care decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But
this,
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
All right, so let me just bring you up to speed on how the media is handling that exchange. The New York Times today they published a fact check and they accused J.D. Vance of lying. They quoted J.D. Vance in the debate and they said false. And then their explanation goes like this. Vance distorted Walz's repeal of a so-called Born Alive law that had been in effect in Minnesota since the 1970s. That law required doctors to report when a live child was born as the result of an abortion, and to provide, quote, all reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice to care for that infant. Okay, Walz repealed it, didn't he, Shawn Carney? In other words, what J.D. Vance said was true.
It was already in place. It was already repealed when he became governor. What he did is got rid of the requirement. He didn't get rid of the practice by any means, but he got rid of the requirement to report it to the state. And there's so many ways. I mean, you can go, but what's wrong with that? I mean, why should we give care to those babies after a botched abortion? What do you think of that? I mean, and he did get in, when do you believe in abortion at 40 weeks, which they all do. He was saying no, and I would ask him why not. I mean, if abortion's health care, if you need it at 40 weeks, why would you deny women access to reproductive health?
Yeah.
So, there's so many ways to ask them, when will you sleep at night, Tim Walz, and an abortion go on? Is it to 12 weeks? Is it 40 weeks? Is it 32 weeks? And why? And so I think that the other thing, I live in Texas, we have Governor Abbott, we had the heartbeat bill, and then once Roe was overturned, we banned abortion altogether. And these governors like Kemp and DeSantis and Abbott are so good at owning this and going on offense and saying, look, we provide $165 million of our surplus to single moms who choose life for their babies. We're supporting the women. You're just selling abortions. And those are bipartisan things. North Carolina has it. Alabama has it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a Democrat in the world to deny funding for that.
Yeah, and also I do think that Republicans would do well to point out the very corrupt relationship that the left has with huge corporations who are pushing abortion merely to keep women chained to their desks rather than have them go on maternity leave or raise a family. That's a very disgusting relationship that the left has with its donors that the right should be calling out on a frequent basis. Also, what came up last night, Tim Walz just made something up, which his campaign has been inventing. They say that the Trump campaign policy is something called Project 2025. It's not. And they also said that Donald Trump will have a pregnancy registry. He will be tracking women's pregnancies all across the country. Listen to Tim Walz say this.
So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments.
The man who wrote that section of Project 2025, which is a Heritage Foundation conservative organization, just policy proposals that they'd like any administration to pick up, including if Kamala Harris were to win, they'd be absolutely thrilled if she were to pick up some of these policy proposals. Roger Severino wrote the following on X last night. He says, Walz outrageously claims that the Project 2025 section I wrote would create a, quote, pregnancy registry. It merely recommends that the CDC compile anonymous abortion statistics for all 50 states instead of the current 46 or 47. Walz's own state collects miscarriage information every year. So it runs a miscarriage registry, according to this logic. It's so hypocritical. It's so dishonest. And it does strike me that it is completely dishonest, Shawn Carney. It's just being made up and then being told to the American people.
It is, and I think the plan is that if you ask Kamala or Tim Walz what their favorite color is or their favorite baseball team, they'll say Project 2025. It's just their response to everything. And so I think everybody was looking around. I mean, you could be a Democrat and you're kind of looking around going, I don't know, man, that doesn't sound right. They're going to register. We're going to put the chip in you. It's going to be like Terminator 2. You know, did you get pregnant? Here's your chip. It's just so absurd. And they don't have anything else to run on. And I think this is part of the risk that you take when you say abortion is our number one issue.
Yeah.
Number one, it's depressing at best, even for those who support it. People don't want to talk about abortion all day. And frankly, in American politics, it always comes down to the economy, to healthcare, to immigration,
Yes.
to national defense. And it's a risk that their campaign is taking.
But yeah, and by the way, it's not Donald Trump and Republicans who are compiling registries of Americans. It's the left that wants to track whether or not you have a gun, what room or closet you keep it in. It's the left that's trying to track your expenditures so that they can debank you. It's the left that's constantly trying to keep registries on American citizens to keep them at heel, not the right. And of course, once again, it's a projection.
I was waiting for Vance to go, no, that was you with the vaccine. You're the registry guy, not me.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, Shawn Carney, thank you. CEO, president of 40 Days for Life. Good to talk to you today, sir.